We may soon see the end of gas-powered cars thanks to a new rule from President Joe Biden's EPA. And what the New York Times is already calling one of the most significant climate regulations in the nation's history, the rule would require that most new cars sold by 2032 are full EVs or plug-in hybrids. They write, the rule increasingly limits the amount of pollution allowed from tailpipes over that time, so that by 2032, more than half the new cars sold in the US would most likely be zero emissions vehicles in order for car makers to meet the standards. That would avoid more than 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide emissions over the next 30 years, according to the EPA. That's the equivalent of removing a year's worth of all the greenhouse gases generated by the US, the country that has historically pumped the most carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Initially, the target for the Biden administration was 2030, but after meeting and consulting with the UAW, the Auto Workers Union, they pushed the target back a couple of years to accommodate for the shifts in the industry. The industry would then be assembling mostly cars that require fewer parts and thus only need fewer workers. But they put out a statement earlier today, applauded the Biden administration, and added, the rule does not require Ford, GM, Stellantis, or any other domestic automaker to do anything beyond the commitments they've made to shareholders to capitalize on the growing EV market. We reject the fear-mongering that says tackling the climate crisis must come at the cost of union jobs. They added, the billionaire class and their allies in government expect workers to bear the brunt of the crisis. When it comes to the EV transition, corporations see an opportunity to collect taxpayer subsidies, increase profits, lower job quality, and leave workers behind. Now, of course, at the same time this announcement was rolled out, it met opposition in the Senate. Senator Mitt Romney tweeted, this is a totally unserious rule. Not only is this unrealistic for rural parts of our country, but it will also increase our reliance on China for batteries. Serious climate efforts should focus on developing new technologies that can be adapted globally. Texas Senator John Cornyn called it more elitist pie in the sky policy on the backs of the hardworking American taxpayers. And the other senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, added Biden's latest ban on gas-powered vehicles and replacement with electric vehicles is another direct assault on consumer choice in the American way of life. It ignores the needs of American families in order to appease the radical environmental lobby at the expense of millions of jobs supported by the automotive industry. Now, of course, we already talked about the fear-mongering that the UAW condemns. You see it there in Cruz's tweet. But what's really interesting is he points out the power of lobbying, claiming the radical environmental lobby is responsible for this. So we took a look at who their donors are, and wouldn't you know it, those three senators are the top recipients of oil money in the Senate since 1990. Mitt Romney has received $8.4 million, John Cornyn has received $4.9 million, and Ted Cruz has taken $4.7 million from the oil and gas industry.
A lot of mainstream media don't give you honest news. We do. You know why? Because of you. Paid membership on YouTube makes all the difference. Hit the join button below and you become the hero that sustains us.
Now, Cenk, I'm curious. This rule is, of course, going to be met with intense lobbying, maybe even legal challenges. But do you think that it can withstand that intense pressure? Do you think we'll see this rule be implemented?
Yeah, so look, there's a lot of caveats here. In the last round of negotiations before this rule was announced, they put in a bunch of loopholes, and some environmental activists say that you could drive a F-150 through those loopholes. It's going to take a while to implement. It must be implemented more than 60 days before Biden leaves office, because then if that happens, it will be very hard to reverse, even if Trump wins. If Biden waits till within the 60-day period, that means he never meant it in the first place. Let's just be clear about that. But for now, guys, this is huge. As Biden himself would say, this is a big effing deal. So look, you've got to make sure that you look out for the average American. And the last time they passed regulation like this inside the Inflation Reduction Act, they did put in a huge subsidy for people to be able to buy electric cars, and created a new bucket of money to have more recharging stations throughout the country, which you absolutely need if we're going to make this kind of change. But this is significant. This is not around the edges. So this combined with Trump now saying about Gaza that Israel should just finish them starts to become significant in terms of if you were unsure about which way to go and you're frustrated at both sides. Trump says he would reverse this in a second. And so if you care about climate change, there's many things that Joe Biden didn't do anything on. But on this, he already put in something significant in the Inflation Reduction Act. That's one of the things we do give him credit for. If he actually implements this, this is a pretty massive change and real movement towards fighting climate change. So credit where credit is due, and perhaps massive credit. So that's point one. And to be honest, Jordan, I'm borderline shocked by it. Like I can't believe they're doing real change and actually fighting climate change. I'm stunned by it. So that's great news. Now onto the senators that you mentioned. Look, while we might be a fan of Mitt Romney for his love of hot dogs, remember who Mitt Romney actually is. He's one of the most corporate politicians of our lifetime. So is it surprising that even on his way out, that he's doing favors for the industry that gave him about $9 million over his career? Of course it's not surprising. I mean, look at and Mitt Romney might be a lot of things, but he's not dumb, right? There's plenty of politicians in this country that are not bright, right? But Romney's not among them. So when Romney says, well, I don't think this is the right path. I think we should just develop new technologies. Really, Mitt? Really, Mittens? Okay, what does that mean? We just develop new technologies. Oh, okay, great. We weren't working on any. We'll start now, and 20, 30 years from now, maybe we'll have a new technology. No, that's absurd. That's basically saying, I don't want you to do anything. I don't give a damn about the climate or the planet or whether we're destroying ourselves. By the way, he's in his 70s. I care about the $9 million I was bribed by oil companies, so I'm gonna tell you not to do a goddamn thing about it because I want you to guzzle up as much oil as possible. And if you're destroying the planet, he's like, look at all the different ways that the corporations that I ran and I supported have destroyed things over and over again. He doesn't mind that at all. And then Cornyn and Cruz are obvious. One other thing that Romney mentioned, he says this would make us overly reliant on China because of the battery situation. I'm not saying that that's a non-issue. That is an interesting issue and one we're gonna have to get past. But is that a reason not to do the right thing? Hey, we might have an issue down the line if we can't catch up to China in that one part of this industry. So let's just do nothing. No, that's absurd. Now, if he had proposed, hey, look, this is great, this is amazing, we're gonna save the planet, this finally makes sense, humanity working together to do the right thing, but I also want a bill that gets us to the same place China is in developing those batteries, so let's get that done. I'd say, okay, that's productive. But that's not what they're doing here. They're obviously corrupt politicians trying to protect their donors.
Yeah, that shift will be costly. And they know that. They know that for the manufacturers, it would be costly, and that would impact shareholder dividends, revenue, et cetera. For the oil companies, that would be potentially catastrophic, hopefully catastrophic. And that's why they're rushing out immediately to say, whoa, this is terrible. This is about consumer choice. The radical environmentalists are at it again, when it just makes sense. It makes perfect sense. I'm new to California, but I had sticker shock, even hearing about it before I got here, about the gas prices here. It's unsustainable. If people can't afford to continue filling their tanks, give them another option. And if we have renewable sources of energy to power these cars, that's great, it's a win-win. There's also a lot of fear mongering about the price of the cars themselves. That won't be an issue when you have a lot of supply. Right now you have little supply and moderate demand. That's going to drive prices up. But when all of these manufacturers, all of these domestic manufacturers are pushing out electric vehicles across all the different classes of car, you're going to see options for everybody, options for every purchase level of purchasing power. That's great. So I'm encouraged by this. We definitely have an element of skepticism to see if it pans out. I hope it does because it's better for the planet.
Yeah, look, I will take away all the credit and then heap twice as much blame on them if this is a trick. If it turns out they never meant it, they don't implement it, they come up with some excuse, or they don't put it into effect until there's less than 60 days left. But for the moment being, it looks like it is a significant proposal by Joe Biden in a way that is very surprising. And we asked the Democrats to do something all the time, and here they are doing something, and it's not a little bit, and it's not around the edges. So this is actually a great development. So let's hope that it's real and that they actually follow through on it.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members, because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.